The art department at Cats Academy Boston proudly presents, maybe, depending on how this goes, Cast from the Art Parlor, with your host, Ken Archer.
No, it's Kent with a T.
Kent Archer. And we're recording. Joining me today is Miss Helen Haggerty, Miss Annabel Wall. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, hi.
Appreciate it. First episode, and you guys said, and I quote, if I check my notes, we would like to be on together because we're funny.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Only together,
Right.
to clarify.
Well, yeah.
Alone,
yes.
boring, together, incredible.
Hilarious.
Yes.
So I thought we would start with something fun. A quick game of trivia. 8 questions. As with any trivia, there's something at stake. For each question you get right, I will cover one of your classes.
Oh my god.
Catch me Googling over here. Just kidding.
However, for each question you get wrong,
Oh no.
I will subtract 8 hours from your paid time off.
No! That's illegal. I'm calling HR.
All right, let's get into it.
That's funny.
Play the drop. And we don't have a drop. Okay. Question 1.
Is this for both of us?
This is for, yeah.
Oh, are we
either
like
of-
buzzing
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, no.
No, we're together.
You're a team.
Oh, okay.
Either of you can answer. You may find 4 are geared towards one person and the other 4 are more geared towards the other.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll introduce you.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Question 1. One of the 7 wonders of the world. This is the longest man-made structure on Earth.
Ding! Great Wall of China.
That is correct.
That was Helen Haggerty with the correct answer.
On May 18th, question 2. On May 18th, 1980, this volcano erupted, killing 57 people.
Mount St. Helens.
Correct. Whenever you want to join in, Annabelle,
I don't
you
know
can.
any of
Okay.
these. I don't know where we're talking about land masses. I'm not a social studies teacher.
I'm the social studies teacher. That's why these ones are geared towards me.
Obviously.
Have we caught a theme yet?
Mount St. Helens has my name in it.
Mm-hmm.
Great Wall. Annabelle
Oh!
Question 3. This actress has appeared in movies such as
Helen Hunt.
Annabelle and The Mummy and the hit Netflix show Peaky Blinders.
The old mummy? Did they make a new mummy?
Sorry, it's the newer Mummy.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
brother.
I don't even know. Can you help me? Can you
I
describe her?
don't know.
Do you have an idea? Sorry, I'm not
It's
mad
the
at you.
old
We're
la-
together.
It's the old person
We're gonna put a
in
timer on
Annabelle. The lady. What? Is
Not
she a
a
young
young-
person?
She's young.
She's a young person in the
Yeah.
Annabelle? And the Mummy and Peaky Blinders. Is she the wife that dies in Peaky Blinders?
this. I haven't seen the end. I don't know.
God damn it. That's
All
like
right,
season
next
2.
question. We're gonna have
No, I will. This is wrong. Subtract 8 hours. Annabelle Wallace.
Oh! I didn't know she was in Peaky Blinders.
I would like to.
I did know
you go.
that actually.
I believe that falls on. I think that can come from her PTO.
That's- of course.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
of
Okay.
course.
Yeah,
Yes.
just making sure.
that.
Question 4.
Okay.
This rock band frontman controversially replaced David Lee Roth as the singer of Van Halen.
No idea.
What year?
Oh boy, 80s.
I wasn't alive.
Replace David Lee Roth.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have Wall in the name? Wallace?
Does this have to do with either of us?
Yeah.
Is his last name Haggerty?
No.
Helen.
Helen Hunt?
Yeah.
Famously, lead singer of Van Halen, Helen Hunt. Dave Grohl? Dave Grohl?
That's the Grateful Dead, babe.
No, it's not! It's like Foo Fighters, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
Nirvana?
And Nirvana, yes.
All
right.
Grateful Dead. Who am I thinking of? All right.
Sammy Hagar.
Hagar. Haggerty.
Let's move to question 5. This marsupial, though smaller in stature and weight, has a similar appearance to a kangaroo.
Wallaby.
Yes.
I was gonna say
You
that
got
too,
it.
by the way, listeners.
Do you want to try? Can you ask it again and Annabelle can get it
Yeah,
right?
well,
Wait, we should say it at the same time.
We can edit that out and
Okay,
we'll read it.
perfect.
Wallaby?
There we go.
Wow,
There we
you're
go.
amazing.
You got it.
Thank you. Very knowledgeable.
Question 6. Something you might do at a flea market.
Haggle.
Yes.
Let's go! Got one!
What? I was like, shop?
Haggle.
Use a porta potty?
Haggle. And
Yeah.
question 7. This extremely popular 90s band released the hit single Counting Blue Cars in 1995. This one is so stupid, I'm sorry.
AWOL Nation?
No, but I like it. I like it. You're on the right track.
Thank you.
You'll never get this.
Okay, thanks.
They were
Give me
not
a hint.
extremely popular at all.
Who's it closer to? Haggerty or Wall?
I'm just going to give you the answer.
Okay.
Dishwalla.
I never-
yeah, no.
I know you wouldn't.
Never have I ever.
I know.
Never
Because
have
you
I
were
ever heard
born in
Dishwalla.
95, right?
I was born in 97.
I was born in 93.
It's so ridiculous. And question 8. Have we kept score?
Yes, we got all of them right so far.
That's correct. This idiom describes a situation that is quickly deteriorating. You can understand why I left this question for last. Or heading toward disaster.
That's all we get.
That's
Does
it.
that have to do with Helen's name?
Yes.
Can you say it again?
This
Things
idiom
deteriorating really quick.
Yeah.
Idiom.
This idiom describes a situation that is quickly deteriorating or heading toward disaster.
Going to hell.
Zoinks. This is going to hell real quick. Been to hell and back? Going to hell.
In a hand basket.
Hell in a
Yes, you
handbag.
got it. Hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Good job.
Thank you. Good job
Nice
to
job.
you.
Thank you.
You're
I think you
welcome.
did fairly well. Unfortunately, you will not be able to call out for the rest of the year. All right. So thank you. On to real topics.
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
and we can have a separate episode where we really talk about who you are and what you do. But for the listeners, if you could tell us a little bit about what you do here, what you teach.
My name is Helen Haggerty. I am the sculpture and graphic design teacher at PodCATS Academy Boston. I lead the diversity club and run open studio in the sculpture room, and will be helping build the set and props for the spring musical.
Miss Annabel Wall,
Yes.
would you mind telling the listeners what you do here?
Yes. My name is Annabel Wall. I am the theater and dance teacher here at PodCATS Academy Boston. I direct the fall play. I direct and choreograph the spring musical. I run the dance team here at CATS. And I also run the dance club. So we have a big dance show at the end of every semester. I teach acting and dance and a cinema arts class.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you. One of the things that you both mentioned was dance. You have both been here sort of for about the same amount of time. Annabelle, maybe one semester longer,
Yes.
I believe, right? So you've been able to come in relatively at the same time, and you've already started collaborating on certain projects and things.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you are collaborating, do you feel it's fulfilling your own interests? Do you feel it's fulfilling an obligation to the students? Both?
So collaboration for me is super important for my creative process. So part of it is selfish and is helpful for me to stay excited and engaged. But also, I think in an academic setting, in courses that are an hour long, it's hard to build in collaboration when students are working on their own projects. And so I find when collaborating with other teachers, whether it's on personal projects or during dance club or even in specific class projects, it's a good example for students. Students often do get involved. Like when we were working together, when Annabelle and I were working together in dance club, sometimes it would be, you know, I take on a chunk of something and then Annabelle takes on a chunk of something, but sometimes it's kind of us and our students working together to solve a problem. And I think we're a creative department. It's not really natural to be creative in a silo.
Mhm.
And so I think one, it helps us expand in whatever it is that we're doing. But yeah, it also is a good blueprint for the students to see, okay, I can share in this creative problem solving. I don't need to do it all by myself. I can be vulnerable and work with another person. And also it's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it helps like get to know my colleagues and my students a little bit better. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I think bouncing off of the example for the students, a lot of what happens in the theater classroom is leading by example. And so not only, I agree with Helen that it's absolutely essential for the creative process, especially in something like the performing arts where you're learning how to work as an ensemble. And a lot of what we focus on in the acting classes is collaboration and active listening on stage. And so if I have like another teacher in the room, or if I'm working with the department on these designs, leading by example in terms of what it looks like to have a good relationship with the people you're working with and how to work as a team on a creative project is a learning objective in and of itself for the students that you can teach just by doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I also think it's powerful, like, a lot of times I'll go down to the black box and Annabelle and her students are in the middle of an activity, a warm-up or something, and or if I go to the gym and you're working on dance, Annabelle always invites me to join whatever it is that they're doing, and I don't always say yes because sometimes I can't, but I try to say yes when I can because I think it's helpful for students to see teachers also not be the best at something, like that I'm willing, that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Obviously, I'm not a performing arts teacher, but I'll jump in and do, one of those improv games that you do, and I think it helps show the students that we don't take ourselves so seriously that we can't try new things in front of them. And similarly, Annabelle will come up to my room and be working on an art project and ask for, how do I cut this thing in half, or how do I do this? And I think just showing other students that within the department, we're all trying things outside of our wheelhouse, we're getting out of our comfort zone, we're asking each other for help when we need it, is all a really good example.
Yeah. I agree with what you said there, because the student may think that we are a master, and I use that term loosely, in our specific field, but that doesn't mean we are anywhere near that in anything else necessarily, right?
Yes.
And most often not.
Mm-hmm.
And still willing to try and learn other things that maybe we're interested in, or maybe we're not.
Yeah.
And didn't even know we were.
Yeah.
And so it's a good example, like you said, for the students to.
Yeah.
We have all collaborated as teachers together on certain projects, whether it be the musical where we're building sets, or even with our own little art projects outside of school. Do you find it's a lot harder when students are added to the mix? Because it's one thing to collaborate and be in charge of yourself, but when you are now in charge of a group of students, what sort of complications or difficulties does that bring to the collaboration?
I think that's something that I had to learn a little bit, and I think that is part of what it means to be a teacher and to be a part of the creative process, but also be delegating, also be teaching skills and letting go of control and letting students kind of find their role in it. I think it takes practice and a lot of, I'm thinking specifically now about this building the set last year. I think I at first tried to break down all of our tasks that we had left to do into super bite-sized manageable things so that I could hand them off to students and say, this is what you're responsible for, and let me know when you're done, basically. Because it's a tight timeline, stress is kind of high, we're navigating, like, where is this going to be done, how long does it take to dry, all of this stuff, and so I thought that would be easier, and what it ended up doing was it kept people from talking and working together, and it gave me more work to do, and so it's not always natural, but the more control I let go of and the more I listened to the people who are wanting to participate, including students, the better it went.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are times when it sounds like the more the merrier, sounds obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but in practice it can make things feel harder at first, especially when we're used to things being done a certain way,
Sure.
or we know how we would approach it, but we don't have all the time in the world. And it's the point isn't for us to make something perfect, it's for people to learn and to work together and all of that. And so it's not always easier to have the more the merrier, you know, or to have
Mhm.
more people,
Mhm.
but it ends up running more smoothly and becoming whatever it's going to become the more you listen to the people that want to be involved. Because
Yeah.
if people are wanting to be there and they're saying, hey, I'm here, I'm available, I'm around to collaborate on this, that's all you need. That's huge.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that fully
There's-
answered your question.
Yeah,
But
and there's something there too that you said, because even though you may feel more organized personally by delegating and creating these little checklists of things for individual students to do,
mm-hmm.
like you said, there's a bit of a communication that gets lost
Yep.
within the group, and now they're all independently working, and you lose something there.
There were a certain amount of things that we needed done for the musical last year, and we hadn't had a ton of interest in students to help with props, and so it was on my list. And Lily came to my classroom and said, "I'm here. I'm ready to help. I've got it." And I hadn't designed the props yet, so I'm thinking, "Come back tomorrow. I'll let you know what to do." And she was kind of like, "Well, I'm here now." And it just, you know, it hadn't occurred to me that I'm like, okay, there's someone who's here now. She wants to take work off of my plate, and she's excited, and she wants to learn something. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so I had to rethink what that meant to collaborate, and that it's okay if other people are responsible for the outcome of something, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that's natural because as artists and teachers, especially as teachers, we're used to being in control of the situation, and sometimes you have to let that go. It's a different situation. It's not the classroom setting, right? And so it becomes a moment to where you can let the students sort of take control. And it's hard to sometimes do, but
it's hard to do, and it's especially with timelines, because obviously we do it all the time in class, right? But with a tight timeline, it's extracurricular. You don't have a set plan the way you do when you're teaching a class. But if someone's taking the time out of their day and they're excited to learn and give their time, then that's great.
That's what we can hope for.
That's
right?
what we can hope for, yeah.
I have two answers to this question.
Sure.
I have one in like a classroom setting and one as a larger scale, like production. I guess I'll start with the classroom setting. A lot of what I found is hard about some of the acting classes is on top of, you know, curriculum and leading the class, we do a lot of group projects that, and this...
Yeah, I guess the performing arts, in contrast to the visual, is sort of already set up for collaboration.
Exactly.
Right? Like visual, we don't do as much naturally.
Right.
Each is working on their own painting or illustration or whatever. So for you, it's already worked into the subject.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we're teaching, you know, how to work as an ensemble, and then later in the semester, in both classes, we do two-person scenes. So as a teacher, I navigate who would work best together, and if there are any interpersonal relationships that I need to navigate for that, and then I navigate who would do best in a specific scene and then pair them with someone who would also work well in that scene. And if there are any people who have a specific narrative or plot point that they want to avoid. So it's a lot of kind of like a board with red wire, red yarn.
Detective work.
Putting it all together. So there's just a lot of interpersonal math that goes into picking scenes, picking scene partners, picking monologues. Because when I've had teachers that just hand the same generic monologue to every student. And I think that's something that makes this theater department a little bit different, is I want to tailor it to each student. So if I'm giving a monologue, I'm getting to know the student. I'm asking them, like, what character tropes do you like? I'm going through my Rolodex of monologues, and I'm handing them a specific monologue. And then same thing for scene work. On a grand scale of production, I think the thing that needs to separate academic theatrical productions from, let's say, a community theater, regional theater, professional theater, is who you're serving. What is this production going to do for our audience? What is it going to do for the students involved? versus like, it's super cool. Two things can be true. It can be super cool and still serve our audience here at Cats Academy. But I think in terms of like collaborating with scenic, collaborating with music, we have to think about how are we going to set our students up for success with this theatrical production.
And by setting them up for success, you mean like what's realistic that will be, let them feel super accomplished within whatever parameters we have, kind of thing.
What's going to make them feel accomplished? What is going to challenge them just enough that they learn something new, or they feel like they have accomplished something that they didn't think they could at the beginning of this rehearsal process? And then realistic things. What can we build in this timeline? How much music is this? How many people do we have versus the harmonies? That's something we're dealing with in SpongeBob right now, is we have a smaller cast, which means our harmonies are smaller groups, which means kids have to be louder in their harmonies, which can be really tricky. And like, how do we inspire that confidence?
I was going to say, what can you share about the performance that we're doing this spring? You mentioned
like
it's SpongeBob.
Yes, we are doing the SpongeBob Musical Youth Edition.
How is it going so far?
It is going very well.
Are we on track?
Yes, I have made a lovely schedule that everyone is sticking to, which is fantastic. Our wonderful music director, Patrick Dalton, has been doing a fantastic job of getting through the music. We've been doing it a little differently, speaking of who we're serving the students. We're doing large group numbers first, and then going to smaller scene work as we go down the road versus going chronologically, so that students who don't have to be there don't have to, which is a little bit diversion from a quote-unquote normal high school rehearsal schedule where everyone comes every day for many, 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 many hours. This, you get those large group numbers out of the way, and then that way I can only, if I just need SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick, guess who's coming to rehearsal? SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick, which also gets more kids involved, which is amazing.
What can you share, Helen, with what's going on in your classes and what you have planned looking ahead?
Well, we just started the resin casting section in sculpture, which is most students' favorite project this far, just because there's multiple steps to the process. They get to use clay, they get to use chemicals that create a reaction.
There's a little bit of magic, right?
A little bit of science, a little bit of magic involved. And we just started that today, actually, which I'm happy about because I think a lot of students take sculpture and sort of assume that it's a ceramics class, and we don't have pottery wheels or a kiln at this point. And sculpture is obviously so much more than a specific ceramics class. And in intro, I try to introduce as many mediums as I can so that they get kind of a taste of multiple 3D mediums. But this one, they'll be making a relief tile. So carving and building up the material and then making a mold out of it and then casting it in resin. But I tend to start with a demo of pouring resin into a mold just to get their attention. Because when I just tell them, oh, we're making molds, they're like, okay, I don't know what that is. But when they watch, we mix two liquids that are clear and then it turns bright white and solid in a matter of seconds, then they're in.
Yeah, that's the magic trick that they get
exactly. And that is where I can usually get the kid who's like, I'm taking this class because I need an art class to graduate. That's usually when I get them to think like, oh,
like this could be interesting.
Cool. So that's what we're doing in sculpture right now. And then in graphic design right now, they are designing a album cover for a band and album of their choosing. We've been learning about color theory and color psychology, and so they've been sort of prompted to ignore the existing branding or discography visuals that artist has been using, and to kind of see what colors, shapes, things it evokes from them listening to that sound. And we're trying to really use the power of shape and color on its own, no type. That's kind of a new thing too that we've been talking about, because back in the day records came in sleeves and it needed often the band name and the album name and the track list on it. Now everyone listens to their music digitally for the most part. Album artwork typically stands alone. You know what song you're listening to because you clicked on it and it tells you. And so we're trying to use just color and form to evoke the vibe, the essence of that record.
Mhm.
So that's what we're working on in graphic design. We're using Adobe Illustrator primarily for that. Although sometimes kids come in with Photoshop experience, and if they want to use both, they're welcome to. They just have to use the tools that we've learned so far in graphic design. That is what we're doing in those classes. And then in diversity, it's Black History Month, and so we're in the process of compiling a slideshow of resources for students to learn about. We've got the history of Black History Month. We've got Black-owned businesses online and in Boston for students to check out. We're doing a dive of specific trades, who the Black pioneers were in those specific industries. So we're highlighting inventors right now, just super interesting. And that's run mostly by Lena and Callisto, and they're doing an amazing job.
So that is your social studies duty. You're teaching history.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
There you go.
That's my connection. That's why I knew the Great Wall of China.
Right,
Yeah.
And we've worked it full circle. Later, we'll have episodes where individually we get to introduce you and learn a bit more about you specifically and personally. To leave off, because we're running out of time, as we have a faculty meeting in 3 minutes.
Woohoo!
The listeners are thrilled to know that. A bit of advice. If you had advice for a student, an art student or not,
Okay.
just someone who's maybe taking an art class, what would be your advice?
My biggest piece of advice is fear of failure is the biggest killer of creativity. And so if you find a place or people or medium in which you can be vulnerable, because trying new things and making art and sharing something that you created is a scary and vulnerable thing. And so if you are worried about how the outcome will be received, you will never be able to create authentically. And so first, try to shed that insecurity by seeking out a safe space or safe people, so that you can create without the fear of how it's going to be received, because that will limit you in learning the foundation of different creative fields.
We shared the same brain cell in that moment. That's why the two of us are here. But I will just say, in the back of the script to the show Fleabag by Phoebe Waller-Bridges, she has a notebook section, and it starts by saying, write as if you weren't afraid. And I think if you just go in, and you can be afraid, but that's what bravery is doing something even though you are afraid to do it. Just begin. I think that would be my biggest advice. Just begin and see what happens.
Just do something.
Just do it.
Start something.
Yeah.
Try it.
If you're in a dance class, jump. Or if you're, just make the line with your pencil.
Yeah.
See what happens. And then just go from there. Just begin.
Very good. Guys, I appreciate your time. Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.